I'm sure you'll remember at the end of our last tutorial that I said to experiment with various effects and even combining effects. Well, that's what we're going to do here. In fact, we'll look at doing just that by looking at chaining our video effects despite the extra CPU hit on our PC. Anyway, so far we have this newspaper effect added to our clip. Now, I don't know why I keep referring to it as newspaper. It's actually called newsprint, but I suppose those two terms are interchangeable, so do forgive me if I keep calling it newspaper. Anyway, what we need to do is click on our Video Effects tab now, and then now by coming down to the bottom right of our event, we can click on this button once more so that we can chain our effects to this event rather than the whole track. Now I know that's not going to make any difference to us at the moment because we've only got this one event on our track, but do remember of course what I've said previously, adding an effect to the track of course applies that effect to every event on it. Adding it to the event on its own only applies the effect to that particular event. Anyway, by clicking on there, of course now we see our video event effects user interface with the newspaper in our chain. I don't mean newspaper, do I? I mean newsprint. Now if I don't want to remove it by the way, but not have it showing at the moment, well I can click in the checkbox there to deactivate. And now, in our main monitor, we see the pristine, unaffected version of our clip without that newsprint effect. And of course, if you check in it once more to activate, then we will see our newsprint effect once again. Now, in fact, I'm going to uncheck it. I don't want to remove it from my chain. I do want to keep it in the chain for later, but I don't want to be running it whilst I'm checking what other effects look like. Although combining or chaining effects like this is often better done when you've got all your effects in view. Anyway, let's add another effect. Click this button, as we know, to add an effect. And now we see our plugin chooser user interface that we use to search through for an effect that we want to use. If you can't see everything, then of course use the up navigation button here to navigate to the relevant area. Anyway, I'm going to go for my Sony subfolder once more, and inside there I'll choose my creative subfolder. As you can see, there are a good number in there. Now I'm going to choose mirror, so it's really obvious when we use this on our event, and hit add. And then hit OK. And now we see Zach there in our monitor with a mirror image. And you'll realise, of course, why this particular effect is in the creative category. And if we look here, our mirror plugin, this creative effect, well, this mirror plugin is listed in the video event effects user interface. Now I just want to move this user interface up here, and then now by clicking my CTI to different positions along my timeline, I can see the effect of this mirror effect. Now, remember, I didn't remove my newsprint effect because I wanted to combine it. Well, by checking in there once more, I can now see the combined effect of using the newsprint effect with this mirror effect. And if I move my CTI a few times across here, across my timeline, we can see the combined or chained result of using these two effects. Okay, so that's the newsprint and mirror. By the way, if you want to reorder this chain, you can do, simply by left-clicking on one. I'll left-click on my newsprint and drag to the right so that the mirror effect precedes our newsprint effect now. Now this doesn't have much difference with these two effects, but if we'd got different effects, such as a blur with a blur vignette effect, which had the centre of your screen in focus, but then blurring to the edges, well possibly if you use that effect, and then followed by a different effect, then you would be affecting the first effect with the second effect, which I appreciate isn't all that clear when I'm just speaking about it like this. However, if I talk about audio effects in a chain, then it might be easier to understand. Imagine you'd got reverb as your first effect in your chain, followed by distortion as your second effect. Well, you would be adding reverb to your vocal, for example, and then you would be distorting it. Therefore, the reverb that you added first will have distortion added to it, but then if you reversed this and had distortion first, you would have a completely distorted audio file that you would then add reverb to, and the reverb would be reverberating distortion. Again, not that clear, I appreciate. It's probably better for you to experiment with this, and you'll notice the difference. Anyway, now mirror is listed here, and if I want to adapt it, well, select it first of all, and then play around with any parameters that you've got. Here we've got a couple of sliders. Now I'm not going to bother too much with this. As I say, just experiment. You could experiment with the angle, for example. I'm going to take that back to 0. Anyway, once you have experimented, let's add another to our chain after this newsprint. So I'll click here once more to add another effect, and I'm going to navigate to New Blue Starter Pack and then choose New Blue ST Colored Pencil. Then I'll click on Add and then OK. Now this doesn't display too clearly or too obviously in our main monitor, so I'm going to uncheck newsprint and mirror and then click on the cross to close. OK, that's better. We can now see this effect, this coloured pencil effect, more clearly. And if I move my CTI to different positions along my timeline, then you can see this sort of effect. I quite like this, and I might end up using it now and again in my final video. Right, I'm going to leave it here then for this tutorial, now that we've looked at how we can chain effects together, so do have an experiment to see what works good for you.